Hello, and welcome to the inaugural edition of Olympus Mons, a music review channel. Now, probably you're wondering why it's called Olympus Mons. Maybe you're familiar with that term, maybe you're not. Well, it's actually there's another music review channel that I watch on YouTube called Sea of Tranquility, and Sea of Tranquility, of course, is a location on the moon. It's where Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and Collins did their inaugural moon landing. That's where Neil and Buzz landed, and so I kind of like that idea. It's all the good names are taken because there's a lot of people doing music reviews and things like that, and so I really like the idea. Astronomy is a big hobby of mine, so I just named mine Olympus Mons. Olympus Mons being a mountain on Mars, and it also happens to be the highest peak in the solar system. So that's all there is to it. Nothing really earth shattering about it. I could have called it maybe Knights of Sidonia, but then you might have confused me with being affiliated with the band Muse, which which isn't the case. So yeah, that's basically all there is to the name. Now, of course, there are a lot of people on YouTube who are doing music reviews. And so one thing that's going to set me apart is I'm going to have a specific focus on contemporary Christian bands. Now, it's not going to exclusively focus on contemporary Christian music because I just enjoy music in general. Specifically, I enjoy classic rock and progressive rock. I'm a musician myself, a classically trained musician. And so progressive rock in particular appeals to me because of all the classical elements that prog rock bands incorporate into their music, especially when they incorporate symphonic elements. I'm really, really into that kind of mesh between rock and symphonic music. So this first album that I wanted to review, I wanted to do Kansas's new album, and the reason for it being that I'm a huge Kansas fan, have been for a long time, ever since I was in high school, in fact. And Kansas, apart from being my favorite band, actually had a foray into contemporary Christian music for a few years. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a background history on Kansas, they had a couple of different iterations before they finally formed and recorded and released their first album in the early 1970s. I want to say 73 or 74 or something like that. They released their eponymous album titled Kansas. And the lineup then consisted of Kerry Livgren on guitars and keyboard, Steve Walsh on lead vocals and keyboards. You had Dave Hope on bass guitar. You had Phil Ehart on drums. You had Robbie Steinhardt on violin and Rich Williams on guitar. And the band really just hit pay dirt. The first couple albums weren't really all that big, but when they released their album Left Overture, which had the smash hit Carry On Wayward Son, they were really off to the races at that point. So they recorded a lot of music in quick succession there in the 70s. Kerry Livgren and Steve Walsh were prolific songwriters. And they recorded their first several albums within just about the span of 4 or 5 years. They had their first album, Kansas, followed by A Song for America, followed by Mask, then Left Overture, Point of No Return, and Monolith. And through all of those album releases, they had the same lineup. But then, as fate would have it, on their Monolith tour, the band that they were touring with had a Christian as a lead singer. I don't know if the band themselves were Christians, but at least one of the members was a Christian. And while they toured together, he would actually evangelize to Kerry Livgren, and eventually led Kerry Livgren to the Lord, essentially. And so because of that, their follow-up album to Monolith, called Audio Visions, really started to have some more overtly Christian themes. For example, the opening rocker on that album, called Relentless, is a song about Kerry's conversion to Christianity. And he has another song on that album called Hold On, which was a song that he wrote to his wife, telling her essentially that she's on the brink of conversion. All she needs to do is take the leap like he did. And so the lyrics that Kerry was writing started to be a lot more overtly Christian. And so after the Audio Visions tour, Steve Walsh just kind of had enough. The overtly Christian lyrics were too much for him. He decided to leave the band, understandably. I don't fault him for that. And so he leaves, forms a band called Streets, and Kansas now needs to find a new lead singer, someone who not only can sing Steve Walsh's parts, but can also contribute songwriting to the new albums. They finally settled on a new lead singer in John Elefante. Now, they didn't know it at the time, but they eventually discovered that John himself was a Christian. So Kerry Livgren kind of considered that a divine appointment. And so they took Kansas in a new direction, not only musically, they kind of left the prog rock behind and started becoming more of a power pop rock band, but also in terms of their lyrics. Their lyrics were a lot more overtly Christian, even more so than Audiovision's. And so they recorded 2 albums with John Elefante, Final Confessions and Desperate Measures. And then after the Desperate Measures tour, Kerry Livgren kind of felt like he was a little bit uncomfortable with using Kansas as an evangelistic tool. So he ended up leaving the band and recording a solo album. And John Elefante just kind of felt like Kansas really isn't Kansas without Kerry. So they record one last song, which they put on a best of project, and then Kansas disbands. John Elefante forms a record label called Pachyderm Records and a new band called Mastodon. Both of those, of course, a play on his last name, Elefante, and then eventually goes solo. A few years later, Steve Walsh reforms the band with 2 of their original members, Phil Ehart on drums and Rich Williams on guitar. No violin. They don't get Robbie Steinhardt back, and then they get Steve Morse on guitar and Billy Greer on bass. And Billy Greer, of course, as well as Phil Ehart and Rich Williams, plays with Kansas to this day. And then eventually they get violin back. They go through a few personnel changes, switching between David Ragsdale and Robbie Steinhardt on violin. But eventually Steve Walsh's voice just fails on him through just years of cocaine abuse. He just can't sing anymore, so he quits the band. They get a new singer called Ronnie Platt, and now their lineup has even changed now since then. And so the current lineup in 2016 recorded a new album called The Prelude Implicit. And now their recent album is called The Absence of Presence. And so the current lineup that they have in Kansas is they have Tom Brislin on keyboards and vocals. They have Phil Ehart on drums, Billy Greer still on bass, Ronnie Platt on lead vocals, David Ragsdale on violin, Zach Rizvi on guitar and vocals, and Rich Williams on guitars, both electric and acoustic. So Phil Ehart and Rich Williams have been with Kansas through thick and thin, through their Christian phase, through, they're troopers. Like, they are invested in Kansas. And of course, Billy Greer has been with the band since 1985, since they reformed. And even David Ragsdale is a veteran of the band because he played with them through the 90s, switching off with Robbie Steinhardt. So that's a little bit of the history of Kansas, truncated, not the whole thing, but just to kind of give a little bit of background and their kind of movement through the contemporary Christian music arena into where they are now. And so the album that they released this year is The Absence of Presence. Now, I know a lot of people don't really like bands when they go through lineup changes, especially when they get a new lead singer, because the singer is often the voice of the band. But Steve Walsh, there's no replacing Steve Walsh, one of the greatest rock and roll singers of all time. In fact, Phil Ehart, their drummer, is a highly underrated drummer. Like, everyone knows Neil Peart from Rush. I firmly believe Phil Ehart is every bit as good as Neil Peart was. But this new album, if you're not checking them out because of their lineup changes, you're really, really missing out on some excellent music. I'm glad that I gave The Prelude Implicit a chance, even though, Steve Walsh wasn't singing and they have some new members. It took a while to grow on me, but I'm really glad I did, because when I got The Absence of Presence, I was blown away by what a great album this is. So here's the CD insert, and if you open it up, you can actually see that it kind of makes a little bit of it actually connects with the back page there. And then inside, you get the lyrics, and you get a picture of each band member on the pages. So here we have Tom Brislin here. Next page with the lyrics, we have Phil Ehart, longtime drummer. That guy's a trooper. Billy Greer on bass, longtime bass player. And with the lyrics, of course. Then Ronnie Platt, the singer. Then we have David Ragsdale, the violin player. Next page, Zach Risby. And as you can see on the lyrics page, they have artwork. Artwork has always been great with Kansas. They've always had phenomenal artwork on their albums. And then we have, of course, Rich Williams on guitar with his eye patch. And here, last page. So the artwork is great. And it comes in a slipcase, which, of course, continues the art throughout everything. And here we have, I got the CD version with the DVD, which just, I think, contains the album, but in a different audio format. And then you can actually pop the CDs out here, and it has more information on the back here. So that's what it looks like. But how does it sound? Well, as you've probably already gathered, I think the album is great. It's just a fantastic collection of music. First track, of course, The Absence of Presence. And the concept, The Absence of Presence, from what I understand, was actually Phil Ehart, and he actually helped write the lyrics on The Absence of Presence. It was basically inspired by Phil walking through an airport, seeing everybody on their cell phones, and realizing that while everybody is physically present, mentally and emotionally, they're elsewhere because they're looking on their phones. And so that's where he got the idea of The Absence of Presence. And musically, it starts off with some pretty haunting keyboard. Sounds like they're playing power chords on it, and with an echo effect going on. And then once that completes, you have the piano playing accompaniment to David Ragsdale's violin. Sounds very Kansas-esque. I mean, this whole album, it sounds a lot like classic Kansas from the 70s. Then the band kicks in, and right away, you know, this is Kansas. They're still here. This album is going to be great. The second track, Throwing Mountains, has a very, very just in your face, chunky, lead guitar and the electric guitar. Very much a rock and roll song. Third track, Jets Overhead. This one starts off with just like piano flourishes, and not like a glissando, but he's actually playing every individual note, and it's just really, really flashy, really great musicianship from one of the keyboard players. I'm not sure exactly which one it is. Could be Tom Brislin. Actually, Tom Brislin's the only one credited with keyboard, so I guess that's from Tom. And yeah, just really, really great. Really great musicianship. And actually, you may have actually heard three of these tracks. Throwing Mountains and Jets Overhead were both, of course, released as music videos in advance of the CD. After Jets Overhead, you have Propulsion 1, which is an instrumental track, about 2 minutes, 17 seconds long. And then Memories Down the Line, the third song that they released a music video for in advance of the CD. And it's just a great song about how we're all connected to previous generations. And the music is great. All of these songs, like, I listened to the album before I did this review, and it's just like you just can't help but sing along with them. All the songs are just, not only are their lyrics great, but they're just a lot of fun to sing along to. Next we have Circus of Illusion, Animals on the Roof. Animals on the Roof, of course, being kind of a weird title, but the song is really about, standing out in a crowd, like not going along with what everyone else is doing. And so, we're animals on the roof. We're going our own way, doing our own thing, not just following the in crowd. So yeah, kind of a weird title, but a song that we can probably all relate to. Then comes the song Never. Probably the most boring title on the album, but it's more ballady, kind of in the same vein as their early songs, All the World or Lonely Wind. Just kind of a ballady song, still a great song, even with kind of a boring title. But the song itself is great. And then the song The River Sang, just a very, very strong closer to the album. I mean, yeah, in fact, I wasn't paying exceptionally close attention, but I believe this is actually the only song on the album in an odd meter. The song is actually in 7/4, and whereas a lot of songs, like even Rush, when they do a song in 7/4, they'll sometimes go into 4/4 for the chorus. This song keeps the 7/4 going through the choruses, and then moves back into 4/4 for the musical interlude with the violin solo, then kicks back into 7/4 for the verses. So I believe this is the only song on the album that's actually in an odd meter. There's still the long musical breaks, the solos, the virtuosic musicianship you come to expect from Kansas, but not so many odd meters like they had on the Prelude Implicit or some of the classic Kansas albums. But the song "The River Sang" is just a very, very strong closer, an overall great song. So once again, the album here that I'm reviewing is "The Absence of Presence." And regarding the artwork here, one main criticism I hear, and I understand it. I understand why people think this is that the Kansas logo is right here, but it kind of blends into the background. It doesn't really pop. Like you would hope it would, because that's the name of the band. But that's just a minor nitpick. The artwork is great. The songs are great. And, packaging, it doesn't ruin the experience, because really when I buy a CD, what I want is the music, and I want to make sure the music is good. But the artwork just kind of elevates the whole thing. It's like icing on the cake. It doesn't ruin the experience if the artwork or if the packaging isn't good. But if it is good, it really takes everything to a whole new level. It really increases the enjoyment of it. So "The Absence of Presence," great album. If you haven't checked it out, if you're hesitant because of the new lineup, go check it out. It's just an album of great music. I don't think there's a bad song on the album. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I'm going to be doing a lot more with this program with Olympus Mons, doing music reviews. I've gotten a lot of new music from 2020, and I'll also be doing a best five and a worst five of the year. Now, I do this basically as a hobby. I am a musician. Like I said earlier, I'm a classically trained musician. I also play contemporary styles. So I like to collect a lot of music for that reason, but my reviews are really more of a hobby. So, I don't get sent free music like a lot of the people who review for magazines do. So my best five and worst five are really just going to be of the ones that I've listened to, which isn't going to be, of course, everything, but, pretty, I think it's sort of a substantial amount of the, well, maybe, I don't know, that might not even be the right word to say, but I have gotten a lot of them that I can actually put a top five and a worst five together. So, if you enjoy this show here, and of course this is only the first one I've done so far, so you might take some time to get used to it, but I do have an email set up for this. It's Olympus Mons Music Reviews. If you'd like to make a donation to this program, either a monetary donation or a donation as far as like CDs or music goes, I would happily accept. You can just email me. We can talk about that. Otherwise, this program, this YouTube channel is never going to be monetized. I'm doing this as a hobby, and I'm doing this because I want to help good music get into the ears of everybody listening. So there'll never be any sort of money barrier. That's just if you want to help give me some more material to review, or if you happen to have a local band that you play with and would like me to review one of your CDs, by all means, I would love to do that too. Now, of course, this is a new show. Like I said, it's going to take some time to get built up, but I believe that I have a lot of good insight that I can offer the music, being that I'm a musician myself, and so I hope you enjoy the program. If not, thanks for checking it out at any rate. But yeah, that's about it. So take care. Maybe I'll come up with a better closing line one of these days. But keep on rocking.